Hey there, my name is Przemek and here's another retro review, this time of this album. Robert Rich and Alio Die, Fissures, released by Fathom Records in 1997, 26 years ago. Not sure if I should introduce both artists. I assume many of you know who they are. Ambient classics, undoubtedly, but for the record, let's do it. Robert Rich is American, California-based ambient artist whom I think we may describe as one of the pioneers of modern ambient music. He started his musical experiments already as a teenager and continued them at Stanford University, where apart from completing a degree in psychology, he was doing his scientific research at Center for Computer Research in Music and Acoustics. His first album, Sunyata, was released in 1982 on cassette, and later it was reissued on CD by Hypnos Records, a fantastic label, by the way, led by Mike Griffin. It's a shame that they are not active anymore. Anyway, I got this CD edition right here. And after Sunyata, Robert has released dozens of albums offering various approaches to ambient matter, sometimes darker, sometimes lighter, sometimes more rhythm-based, alone or in collaborations with such artists like Steve Roach, Lastmort, Ian Boddy, and several others. He's also known for his sleep concerts, a night sleep concert shows with people attending with sleeping bags, to experience kind of lucid dreaming stimulated by Robert Rich generating a few hours long soundscapes. In 2001 we got a kind of substitute of such show to experience at home. It was a DVD album, Somnium, with around 7 hours of ambient. I had it, but I borrowed it from my brother, but he lost it somewhere. Brotherly love was put to a test a couple of years ago. But still, if I were to make a list, which artists' albums are most represented on my shelf back there, I think Robert Rich would be in top 5, I'm guessing. But he'd still be behind Alio Die. I think I have like 35 albums by Alio Die, give or take, alone or in collaborations, and it's not even half of what he released in general. Yes, when I think of it, then Alio Die is number one when it comes to the number of albums owned by me, by one artist. Anyway, Alio Die is Stefano Musso, an Italian born in Milan, and he's releasing music since the early 90s. In most cases on his own label Hic Sunt Leones, but he has also collaborated with such labels like Project, Weird Amplexus, and some others. Of course, Stefano Musso wouldn't be a true ambient maker if he didn't collaborate with other ambient artists like Widna Obmana, like Matthias Grasov, like Jack or Jive, and a number of fellow Italian musicians, Antonio Testa, Aglaia, Zait, and for me personally, his most successful collaborations are the ones with Opium, the albums he did together with Teo Zini as Sola Translatio are pure ambient perfection. By the way, Opium will appear in my retro reviews segment at some point because it's a criminally underrated project and his early albums like The Reborn of the Rebel Angel, released by Hickson Leones, Algorithms, released by Silentes, and Watercolors, it was out on Practicing Nature, are ambient masterpieces, at least in my book. Anyway, it's a natural thing to say that Alio Die has its very own style. It's hard to confuse his ambient with the music of any other project. Yes, as in Robert Rich case, sometimes his music is darker, sometimes lighter, sometimes more organic, sometimes more electroacoustic. On a couple of albums, there's this historical, I don't know, medieval or Baroque or Renaissance beats me undercurrent, but always hidden behind this hazy ambient veil. And there's always a certain stillness, calmness, and peace in his music. It's relaxing, but not in a cheap new age way. There is a depth in his music and the ability to introduce the listener to a different state of consciousness. So it was natural that somewhere along the way their creative paths will cross. I asked Robert, was there a spark, something that made them realize that now is the time, that now they are able to create something special? This is how he responded. While I got written answers, this is not actually Robert Rich's voice. It's a text-to-speech generated by AI.
The first spark is friendship and mutual respect. Of all the different creators in our scene, Stefano's music was among my favorite. We had been writing back and forth and sharing our music with each other since 1990 or so. When I had a few concerts in northern Italy in 1994, Stefano came to meet me and Dixie, my wife since 1999, in Bologna, and invited us to stay with him in Milano. It grew as a natural friendship. Our personalities suited each other well. In 1996, I was living alone for a period on the Central California coast, separated from Dixie as I needed some hermit time. During that time, I went on a 3-month tour around North America, mostly playing sleep concerts on radio stations. Before I left, Stefano and I sent letters to each other about making an album together. Email was rare at the time. We agreed that Stefano would fly out to Los Angeles from Milano, and I would pick him up before my LA concert on the return leg of my tour. We drove together back to the small town of Cambria where I was living, and he stayed with me for a month while we worked. This communion was all about friendship first. Music was the growth from friendship. We also spent a lot of time hiking, fishing, and looking for porcini mushrooms, a passion we share. And it was a very rainy November. We had a similar way of listening to the world and a deep respect for each other.
If I'm not mistaken, their first collaboration was on the occasion of Hickson Leones' compilation The Promises of Silence from 1993, featuring, among others, Robert Rich track Black Skies. Personally, I don't recall when I got to know Fissures. For sure, it was a few years later, a few years after its release, 2006, 2007 perhaps, I don't remember. As I said, released by Fathom Records. It's a sublabel of Hearts of Space Records, and to be honest, the Fathom catalog was much more interesting than folk, world, and new age music oriented Hearts of Space. Apart from number of Robert Rich albums, in Fathom Rooster you will also find some stuff by Steve Roach, Michael Stearns, or Two. Okay, this is how it looks like. Nothing extraordinary in terms of graphic design. I don't know what it is on the cover. Inside the credits, no, just a normal stuff. Let's talk about music. I also asked Robert, did they have, before the recording, an exact idea in their minds of how the album should sound like, or was the creation process rather instinctive and natural?
Pure instinct and natural. But we did have some approximate ideas. I wanted to echo back to Stefano the part of his sound that I love the most, so I recorded some very high-quality binaural small sounds like leaves rustling, gravel rolling, paper and dry skin, microphonics. This began our idea of the microworld, looking into the small cracks below our feet, trying to respect the immense influence of the smaller world onto our own scale world. Another decision I made, to force the project along, involved recording the whole album as one composition in multiple parts, everything crossfading together with a pair of ADT machines for 16 tracks. This method worked very well for Stalker with Lustmord, and I knew it could make the process move more quickly.
It is easy to notice characteristic elements and sounds for both artists on Fissures. The oniric tranquility by Alio Die and the deep melancholic soundscapes by Robert Rich. But Fissures is one of these albums the artists managed to achieve kind of synergistic effect. This is what's best in Robert's music, what's best in Alio Die music, and the final result I consider as one of the brightest gems in discographies of both musicians. Sorry, Baldur. There is, sorry, cat. There's this note on the back cover saying, entering through the fissures between two worlds, a journey into the microcosmic subterranean internal, seeking a medicine to bridge the chasm that separates us from the ancient past, to calm the waters of a tumultuous present. After such a description, one might think that the music may be a shapeless, abstract form of ambient, but none of these things. The album is sparkling with beautiful harmonies and melodies. Sometimes there is this world ethno vibe, like in the second track, A Canopy of Shivers. This flute melody and the slow tribal rhythms, but more often these are deep soundscapes taking the listener in some mysterious realm. My favorite track is the third one, Sirena, where delicate drones and subtle field recordings somewhere in the middle of the track morph into probably one of the most beautiful melodies I've ever heard. I think it's Robert Rich's steel guitar, contemplative and nostalgic, leading to a bittersweet finale. It's like a longing for a place that doesn't exist, and this is exactly how ambient should work, at least in my case. The whole Fissures album works that way, but Sirena track in particular. I asked Robert what are his favorite fragments on the album.
It's hard to pick a favorite. I love the bright clarity of Canopy of Shivers, and I also love the elongated procession of Road to Wirikuta. Perhaps the subtle track, Mycelia, represents the most ideal union of our two vocabularies merging as one. To me, it feels more like Alio Die than Robert Rich, and perhaps that's why I like it so much.
True. Mycelia is another highlight of the album. Its intricate delicacy still soothes my soul after all those years. Yes, so many years have passed, and Fissures is still among my favorite sleeping albums, along with a few Matthias Grasov albums and maybe some others. And it's still one of the most sublime ambient releases ever made, not because of its groundbreaking or moving mountains or originality, but because you hear a great harmony of two exquisitely talented artists, and it's a symbiotic collaboration. Neither of the artists dominate over another. You don't get the impression that it's Robert Rich album with Alio Die contribution or the other way around, and it's impressive even today. And I asked Robert how he sees the album after 23 years since its release.
I think this album creates an unlikely bridge between shamanic energies and feelings of warm comfort. It is neither dark nor light, and it respects the sacred in everything. It's a very special mood, gentle and deep. Honestly, this is one of my favorite albums in my own catalog. I can listen to it as if it were a favorite by some other artist. Also, it has very warm and loving emotions around it, as it was a period of reconciliation with my lifelong companion Dixie. We had been separated during that time, and our mutual friendship with Stefano brought us back together, and we are still together now. In fact, after Dixie and I got married in 1999, we spent a week with Stefano at his old stone house in Lunigiana.
Obviously, after such a success of Fissures, it would be natural to think about the follow-up, especially that, as I said earlier, ambient electronic composers are more likely to collaborate with each other than musicians from any other genre. Yet we never got one. Do we still have a chance that one day another collaboration by Robert Rich and Alio Die will see the light of day?
This would be a joy, of course. Stefano and I communicate a bit through social media, but I am not sure what musical bridge we would discover together now. I would be very happy to have him stay with us for a month again and try to find out where our lives meet, almost 30 years later. Even if we don't make an album as good as Fissures, I know we would cherish the time together.
We'll see then. For now, we can still enjoy Fissures, as it is still one of the brightest stars on ambient firmament. Okay, that would be it. Click subscribe if you like the content on the channel. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.